friend. Wait, don't miss this video. If you are watching it right now, it means you are already a part of something amazing. Before anything happens, subscribe to this channel. Seriously, just one tap. Done. Good. Stay till the end. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.
Menschen, die True Crime Stories hören oder generell so Horror Stories, wenn die gerade schlafen gehen und dann immer dieses, ja, ich brauche das, um besser einschlafen zu können. Haltet euch fern von denen. Haltet euch fern von denen. Weil egal wie gut die aussehen, rührt sie nicht an. Die kriegen praktisch eine Anleitung, wie die Menschen verschwinden lassen können. Und du willst doch mit so einer Person zusammenkommen? Lass die Mädels in Ruhe. Weil das sind hauptsächlich Mädels, die das machen. Lass die Mädels in Ruhe. Ich sage, die haben irgendwas Verrücktes an sich. Lass die in Ruhe. Weil wenn du einen kleinen Fehler machst, kannst du dir sicher sein, deine Tage sind gezählt.
So listen to me. Huh? Listen. I'm gonna call you back in 30 minutes. And you better have answers.
Jezivi story time. Zvao me sa mog broja. Ja vam se kunem da ovo najstrašnija stvar u mom životu koja se dogodila. Pre neki dan bila sam sama kući. Svi su otišli i onda oko pola 11 uveče mi je zazvonio telefon. Gledam, moj broj me zove. Prvo mislim da je neka greška, ali on opet zove. Moje ime, moj broj me zove na moj telefon. Javim se i čujem sebe, ali nisam pričala. Čujem svoj glas kako kaže: znam da si sama, otvori vrata. U tom trenutku meni ruke zadrhte i počnem cijela da se tresem. U tom trenutku trčavam do sobe, zaključavam vrata i zovem mamu. Naravno, preko drugog telefona. Rekla sam mi sve što se dogodilo. Ona je rekla da odmah stiže kući, pošto bila je napolju sa drugaricama. Kada je stigla, ispred vrata je bila cedulja na kojoj je pisalo: nisi ni slutila koliko te poznajem. Nema kamera, niko ne zna šta se dogodilo. Niko ne zna kako je uopšte taj poziv bio moguć. Ako vam se sviđa ovakav serijal, lajkujte i zapratite nas za još. Ćao!
What happened to your eye? I just have really bad hay fever, so they go a bit bloodshot and swollen sometimes. The pollen this year is just absolutely wild.
Oh mein Gott, ich habe gerade so eine gruselige Geschichte gelesen. Ich muss euch die einmal wiedergeben. Diese Geschichte ereignete sich an Heiligabend, also heute am 24. Dezember, mitten in der Nacht. Die Familie saß ganz entspannt zusammen im Wohnzimmer, bis um 22:47 Uhr plötzlich die Tür klopfte. Der Vater stand auf, ging zur Tür, öffnete sie, aber da stand niemand. Das Einzige, was dort lag, war unten auf dem Boden ein kleines Geschenk. Kein Absender, kein Name, nix. Der Vater dachte sich nichts dabei, hat das Geschenk genommen und hat es unter den Weihnachtsbaum gelegt. Kinder haben sich super gefreut und die Mutter meinte noch, wir öffnen es später. Um 23:12 Uhr fällt plötzlich der ganze Strom aus. Die haben auf einmal kein Handyempfang mehr. Gar nichts leuchtet mehr. Das Einzige, was man gehört hat, war das Knistern vom Kamin. Dann hört man plötzlich mitten im Dunkeln ein Klopfen. Und dieses Mal nicht von der Tür, von draußen oder irgendwo, sondern es kommt aus dem Haus. Genauer genommen aus dem Geschenk. Der Vater fängt plötzlich nervös an zu lachen und sagt, ach, das ist bestimmt nur ein Spielzeug. Geht hin zu dem Geschenk, macht es auf. Leer. Da war gar nichts drin. In dem Moment fängt es im ganzen Haus an zu klingeln. Alle Telefone plötzlich klingeln. Selbst die alten Telefone, die sie oben aufs Dach gelegt haben, sind auch alle angegangen. Alle haben geklingelt. Die Mutter und der Vater schauen aufs Handy und sehen da eine Nachricht. Da stand: ihr habt vergessen, für mich mitzudecken. Und plötzlich geht das Licht auf einmal wieder an. Die Mutter hat sofort bemerkt, dass der Esstisch verändert wurde. Dort wurde einfach für eine weitere Person mehr gedeckt. Ein zusätzlicher Teller, Besteck, ein Glas voll mit Wasser. Die Kinder komplett unschuldig fragen, wer kommt denn noch? Plötzlich hört man, wie von oben jemand die Treppen runterkommt, ganz langsam, und man hört, wie die Stiefel noch tropfen vor Wasser wegen dem Schnee draußen. Die Mutter flüstert zu den Kindern, dass sie früher mal einen Bruder hatten, aber sie von dem noch nie was erzählt hatte. Und er ist damals vor 10 Jahren gestorben an Heiligabend. Seitdem hat die Mutter nie wieder über ihn gesprochen. Und dann plötzlich halten diese Schritte hinter der Wohnzimmertür und dann fängt es auf einmal ganz plötzlich an zu klopfen. Was redest du gerade? Ey. Ich habe mir das so gerade nicht eingebildet, oder? Ich bin alleine hier, ne? Es hat gerade geklopft. Ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das gehört habt, aber ich bin alleine. Deswegen ist mein Freund, meinte, er ist beim Sport und er ist gerade erst losgegangen. Das heißt, es kann gar nicht sein, dass hier gerade irgendjemand ist. Und ich bin in einem Airbnb, ne? Hier ist keiner. Ich filme das ja. Ich krieg gleich einen Herzinfarkt. Wenn ihr hören würdet, wie sich mein Puls gerade anhört. Ich mache jetzt die Tür auf. Ey, wehe, das ist irgend so ein schlechter Scherz.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
Let's read another one of your stories. My name is Emma, and I'm 21. Here's my story. I don't talk about this much, but 4 years ago, October 14, 2021, something happened to me in the Appalachian Mountains that I still don't have a real explanation for. I was 17 at the time. My family had rented a small off-grid cabin near the North Carolina-Tennessee border, not far from a less used section of the Appalachian Trail. There was no cell service, no neighbors, just woods that went on forever. That first evening, everything felt normal. Quiet, cold, the kind of quiet where you can hear leaves falling. At around 9:40 p.m., I went outside to take pictures of the stars. That's when I heard something that sounded wrong. It wasn't an animal, it wasn't a person either. It sounded like someone was trying to imitate a human voice, but not quite getting it right. Like a whisper that was too slow, stretched out, drifting through the trees. And then it said my name. Not loud, not clear, just enough to make my stomach drop. I hadn't told anyone I was going outside. I froze. The woods went completely silent. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Oh no. Then, from somewhere deeper in the trees, it said my name again, this time closer. I went back inside and locked the door. I didn't tell my family. I knew how it would sound. That night at 2:17 a.m., I woke up because I felt like someone was standing near me. I'm sorry, that freaked me out. I could hear slow footsteps on the porch. The wood creaked like someone was shifting their weight. Then came the tapping. 3 slow taps on the window next to my bed. I stared at the curtain, too scared to move. A shadow passed across it, tall and thin, like something leaning down to look inside. Then it whispered again, my name. In the morning, I went outside. There were bare footprints in the dirt below my window. Long, narrow, and too deep, like whatever made them was heavier than a person should be. They didn't lead away, they stopped right there. Later that day, we went hiking. I tried to forget about it, but about an hour into the trail, I noticed something I can't explain. Every now and then, I would hear footsteps behind me, but when I turned around, no one was there. Then I heard my mom's voice. She was walking in front of me, but I heard her calling my name from the woods to my right. I didn't answer. The voice kept calling, getting more urgent, more emotional, like it was trying to pull me off the trail. I grabbed my mom's sleeve and told her to keep walking. That night, October 15th, we left early. No one argued. But when we drove away, I looked back at the tree line and saw something standing just inside the woods, tall, still, watching. I didn't see its face. I don't want to. I still hear my name sometimes when it's very quiet. Oh, that is so scary. That is so scary. I'm glad that you guys all left early and that you got out of there and you are safe, but I think no one will argue that this is a good case of a flesh pedestrian lurking in the woods. The classic tap, tap, tap as well. Like, this is a classic horror story, and I am so terrified that this happened to you. But thank you so much for sharing. This one really got me, and I am going to not be able to sleep tonight, so thanks. As always, if you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me, and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
Do you guys want to hear a scary story? This one still gives me chills. So one night I was babysitting the girls. If you need context, refer to my playlist for my babysitting horror stories. And if you are not new here, you know who Pete is, the demon that haunted the home. One night, Luna, the oldest daughter, who was very attached to Pete, told me, hey, Pete taught me a new game, and I would like to teach you how to play. And I think this happened when I was 16, so I was like a junior in high school. She called it a game with the mirror, and I swear what happened this night was not pretend and was 100% real. Now, instantly when she tells me the mirror game, I think back to when I was a kid. 90s kids, you played Bloody Mary in the mirror, you know, we had all those games and stuff. So in my head, I'm just assuming that maybe she learned this from school, and even though I know Pete is very real in the home, I'm thinking maybe it's just a Bloody Mary game or something. Here's what scared me. She told me that she was finally old enough for Pete to teach her this game, and he was going to teach her this game that he had taught a lot of kids before her. That part stuck with me. So she said, okay, Riley, we have to do this at this time. It was 8:36. Very interesting because she's still young at this point, but it was a very specific time. She said at 8:36, we're going to stand in front of the mirror. You can't blink. You have to look at yourself, and you have to say your own name backwards 3 times. Don't think anything of it, right? On bedtime, 8:30, I forgot about the game at this point because she told me about it earlier in the night. So when bedtime came around, in between 8 and 9, I wasn't really thinking about it as much. So I'm going to find the girls. I'm getting out. They had vitamins they took before bed, getting their toothbrushes ready for them and stuff. And I would go to find them. They're in their parents' room where there is a giant mirror, kind of like that one I have, like right there, but bigger, just standing on the wall, and they're talking to the mirror. Well, Luna was the oldest. So Aura, the younger one, Luna's talking to the game, and Aura was just watching her. And I came in, and I was instantly a little irritated, and I was like, hey, I told you we're not playing any creepy, weird games. Like, we're not doing this. Grab Aura. I don't really want her around it because she was never as attached to the activity in the house like the older one was. And Luna turns and looks at me, and she said, he said it's your turn next, to me. I look in the mirror, and it looks like it's fogged from the inside out. Literally, the best way I can describe what I saw was like something was breathing and fogging up the mirror from the inside, because I went to wipe it off, and it was not on the outside of the mirror. And then I watched it slowly start to dissipate. Mirrors already freaked me out with my history of paranormal activity I've had throughout my life, so I instantly just, nope, shut it down, we're going to bed. Game's over. Like, I was very irritated at the time, too, because I told her we weren't doing this type of thing, and I was really worried that Aura would get scared too and not be able to sleep, and that it would stir activity up, all that stuff. So I put them to bed, and Luna says, can I sleep in Aura's room? Which I thought was kind of, they did that sometimes with each other. Normally, you know, when activity had gotten so bad, like I would let them sleep on the couch sometimes too, but they seemed like they were okay this night, and I thought maybe they just want to snuggle. And Aura still had a baby monitor in her room, even though she was a toddler at this point. But it was mostly like a camera where I could just see over the room. So I told her, yes, that's fine. And they go to bed, and everything surprisingly feels normal in the house for once. We had our moments, right? And anyways, I'm sitting on the couch. I was texting my friends, doing whatever I was doing, my junior year of high school on my phone, had the TV on in the background. And the room is like radio silent, which was interesting because normally when they had sleepovers with each other, it was cute. They sleep in the same bed, they would talk, they would stay up a little bit, completely silent. And they had just went to bed like 20-30 minutes. So I was like, oh, that's good, they're sleeping. So I turn around and I look at the little monitor, bird's eye view of the room, and I see a figure hunched over, a black figure, I know it's Pete, hunched over at the foot of the bed, and he is just staring up at the girls, and they are passed out asleep. I run into the girls' room instantly, and as I'm like going to the room, keep in mind I've had specific experiences like this before, and I still would get scared every time seeing something on a baby monitor that was so clear, because the figure I saw of him that time was just hunched over, and he was looking right at the girls. He wasn't looking at me at the camera, he was staring up at them in the bed. This is very unsettling. So I ran in there, I check on them, of course nothing is there. It's gone from the monitor. Then I hear something coming from the parents' room where we were playing the mirror game earlier. So we were playing the mirror game where I shut it down, you know what I'm saying. Gain up the courage to go over to the parents' room because I always had that door shut. Bless you! And I gained the courage to go into the room, and I crack it open. I don't see anything. Turn the light on, and I see there's something on the mirror. Y'all, this has stuck with me for so long. My handwriting is really messy and distinct, and it's not great. I'm not proud of it. I see in the mirror, earlier I told you it was kind of foggy, a little bit blurred, kind of like when you write on a dirty car window. It's fogged up again, and in my handwriting, I look in the mirror and it says, I see you. But I never wrote on the mirror, and I never went back in that room afterwards, and it was fresh. After this, she bothered me about the mirror game a couple more times, but I never let her actually play it, and I was terrified of the mirrors in the home, so I would usually take a bed sheet and cover every possible mirror because I was terrified.
Let's read some more scary Reddit stories. Many years ago, my brother was driving home from college very late at night, early in the morning after finals or midterms from Michigan to Illinois. He's in the middle of nowhere and is getting drowsy. He dozes off for a second, then wakes up to someone saying wake up or stay awake behind him. Not screaming or anything, just what you'd say to someone if you were in the car with them. He looks in the rearview mirror and there's a girl sitting there. He looks at the road and looks again in the rear view and turns around. She's gone. A mile or two later, he drives past a cross and all these flowers on the side of the road. He's wide awake for the rest of the way home. Come to find out later, a college girl fell asleep one night while driving there. She fell asleep and went off the road and crashed and passed away. That is actually so sad. I was in a dead sleep on my couch when I got woke up by wailing and screaming on the front porch of my apartment building. It was my neighbor and some cops. The conversation happening outside my living room window was he had taken shrooms and also had a pew-pew in his apartment, and he admitted to wanting to blast through the walls then himself, so he called 911 and turns himself in. We shared a wall. His ass wanted to shoot all his neighbors. He was put on a gurney and taken to the hospital in an ambulance. I think he came home 2 or 3 days later, if memory serves me. I heard his door opening a lot, so assumed he was home, and shortly moved out afterwards. We only spoke maybe 5 or 6 times in the 7 years he lived on the other side of my living room wall. Okay, wait, I'm confused. So he wanted to pew-pew through the wall and unalive his neighbor at the same time? I don't really get that one. Okay, moving on. When I was little, around 8, I hated going to the dentist. He always made me uncomfortable for some reason. I remember thinking his smile stretched too far and seemed forced, like clowns. Anyway, my mom always came with me and went back so I wouldn't be scared. One day, my dad had me, my parents were divorced, and he had to take me to the dentist. They tried to make me go back alone so he could sit in the lobby doing whatever. The assistants had to literally drag me back to the room, and you could hear me screaming and crying down the hall, refusing to sit in the chair. Finally, my dad came back to get me. Irritated, I'd made a scene. He rescheduled my appointment to when my mom would have me, and we just left. He made a big deal about how bad I was acting and told my mom she was spoiling me and all sorts of shit. 2 weeks later, it's on the news that my dentist was charged with child porn after essaying children under anesthesia and photographing it. I lived in a small college town and my apartment complex was walking distance from the bar downtown area. One weekday night, I stepped out on our front porch to smoke a cigarette or two. I was up late studying. I brought my textbook with me and sat down on the stairs while I smoked. A girl who I had never met but who lived one apartment over but down on the ground floor came home from downtown. She was by herself and you could tell from her walk she had been drinking. She got in her apartment and barely got the door closed before some guy who came out of nowhere knocked on her door. She opened and I noticed he introduced himself, which was weird because it was after 2:30 a.m. Who comes to a strange girl's apartment at that time? So I decided to stay outside and pay attention. They ended up talking for over 10 minutes. She later acknowledged how weird the situation was, but did not know how to end the conversation. He would do the creepiest things, like he reached up and stroked her hair at least 3 times and would try to slowly inch his way closer to her and the door. I made a point of being loud with my textbook so he would know I was there, and he disappeared as eerily as he had come. We called the cops, and days later, they had the girl and me sit with a sketch artist. As soon as the sketch was made public, floods of calls came in. Guy turned out to be a serial rapist who followed lone girls home from bars and pretended to be a cab offering them a ride. This girl just got lucky because she lived so close to the bars. He didn't get a chance to pull that cab routine. And that is why you don't open the door for strangers. When I was little, my mom would take me to Kmart and let me wander around the toy section while she shopped, normal in the 70s. One day as I was playing Simon Says, an old man walked up to me and was making small talk while I played. He eventually told me to come with him and took me by the hand. We walked right down the main center aisle of the stores towards the exit sign in the back. As we crossed the last row, I looked to the right and saw my mom at the end of the row. I told him I saw my mom and had to go. I pulled away my hand and ran down to her. I didn't tell her what happened because I didn't want to get in trouble for going with a stranger. It was several years later that I realized that I had probably narrowly avoided being kidnapped or worse. In a cold winter night in a remote village from Quebec, Canada in 1990, me and my two brothers were asleep. We were 1, 3, and 6 years old. In the middle of the night, someone entered our house without knocking, walked around, and was talking to himself. Our house is 2 miles from the village in a rural area. My father woke up, went to the living room where the guy was. He had a car accident 1 mile from our house with his buddy who passed away instantly, and his scalp fell in front of his face. So the first time my father saw him, he saw a man with no face. He was drunk and his body was frozen. He was speaking to himself. The fact that his face was partially frozen might have saved his life, preventing him to lose too much blood. My father took him to the hospital, and he did survive. That is freaking crazy. Went camping with some friends on a hill a few kilometers out in the woods from one of the guys' houses. There's a few hiking, four-wheeling trails in the area that lead up to the hill, so it's known by locals. It was about midnight, we had a fire going, and we were just sitting around having a good time. Then the guy, there was 4 of us, sitting opposite of me, yells, "Who are you?" I turn around and there's this man about 6 feet tall staring at us from the edge of the woods with a big rock in his hand. One guy knocked an arrow in the compound bow we had. The guy across from me grabbed the hatchet and I pulled the knife off of my belt. We had no clue what we were doing, but the guy wouldn't say anything to us. He eventually just backed into the woods. No sleep was had that night and we kept a very large fire going. We were partying at a usual party spot by the river and some dude came out of the woods. He just kept saying weird shit like, "You gotta watch yourself down here. There are some bad folks around here." And when asked who he was, he just said, "I'm nobody." We were all a little sketched out and basically told the guy to fuck off. A couple days later, a girl went off the rope swing there and got really fucked up. Someone put fishing hooks all over the bottom of the rope swing and it took chunks of flesh out of her leg. Later, we found out the dude was just a guy that lived nearby, and although a creepy drunk, he was harmless. There was a fucked up, probably inbred family that lived up the road that he would warn people about. About 5 years later, last year, they beat some kid up with a log and kidnapped some girl at Pew Pew Point and took her on a joyride. That sounds like Wrong Turn. Once I was walking my dog in a park in London, Ontario. There are houses that sit on the edge of the park and back onto the Thames River and hiking trails. It was a pretty hot day and my dog was thirsty, so I brought him to the river to drink. We got down to the river and we were behind a house with a large privacy fence that sat on the edge of the park. While my dog was drinking, I heard loud banging noises coming from the backyard like a hammer. I thought somebody was building a shed or something. All of a sudden, the hammer stops and a man says, "Shut up, nobody knows you're here." And the banging began again. I froze in fear and then ran up to the bank back into the park. I was now directly beside said creepy house. A man came out of the backyard in fatigues with a rusty old wheelbarrow, heading towards 2 quintessential kidnapping vans parked in front of his house. He noticed me looking at him as I was walking past, set down the wheelbarrow, and just stared at me until I was out of the park. I called the police when I got home, and I still have no idea what happened. Eek, that's scary. Last year, a guy came to my house's door around 9 p.m. He knocked and I got my mom and she went out to see what was up. By the way, we live in a very rural area, so visits that late are extremely uncommon and strange. The guy talked to my mom about how he was opening a business, asked whether she liked American-made products, then handed her a Clorox container as a sample. He went back to his minivan and opened it to get a vacuum cleaner when my mom saw 5 other men sitting inside. She told me to run and get my phone since we don't have a landline. I couldn't find it, so I got my knife and stood around the corner. She threw the container outside and told them to get the hell off of her property, as well as she was calling the cops. They peeled out of the driveway and we never saw the car again. That is so scary.